Greetings, dear viewer. So this is the first part of a new series that will pick through the manure pile of ball earthers.
Vince, apparently they prefer the word Globetard.
Eh? Oh, how very quaint.
Globetards believe they live on a cartoon spinning ball in an infinite space vacuum. The only proof these mental defectives have are cartoon composites and computer-generated images provided by the government, which they saw on television. Globetards were indoctrinated to reject any notion of a god or higher power, and instead they choose to wave their hands while proclaiming that the Earth they live on was created by a magical explosion because of reasons. Globetards believe the Earth was formed right in the perfect area next to the Sun, known as the Goldilocks zone. This area of their magical infinite space vacuum is where everything is just perfect for life to not only survive, but to thrive as well. And of course, Globetards choose to believe that this is all due completely to random cosmic luck. They also believe that this same cosmic luck is what helped their 8-brain ancestors to evolve from primates into the bright shiny Globetards that they are today. Basically, their argument boils down to, but, my science book! They can't even agree on whether or not their cartoon world is a sphere or an oblate spheroid. Just after the nearest Globetard tells you it is actually a pear-shaped world, they will then cite Neil deGrasse Tyson saying so as their proof. Another thing Globetards can't seem to get straight is the height at which the supposed curvature becomes visible on their spinning cartoon pearoid. Some Globetards will tell you they can see the curvature of the Earth from on top of a mountain.
Here's a photo from a very high mountain overviewing the valley below. And what you see here is the curvature of the Earth. I myself have been on a very high mountain like this, and I've seen the curvature of the Earth, and I told myself, wow, I can see the curvature of the Earth from here.
While other Globetards claim they can see the curvature from out an airplane window.
Genius! What about the images I see with my own naked eyes when I'm on a plane? Sometimes when I'm on a plane, I can see the Earth's curvature from the plane.
But the smartest of all Globetards will contradict his fellow ball worshippers and proclaim one must be much higher than that in order to see the supposed curvature of the magical tilting pear rock. This alone gives us a valuable insight on the fast pace of Globetard research, because all they had to do at some point was open their minds and use the senses they were created with to find out. Despite this, these vacant-minded globe guzzlers think they can make pronouncements about reality even though they have never actually lived in it. So now that we have set the scene of who we're dealing with, let's get cracking.
Flattards think there is a global conspiracy to hide the shape of the Earth, a conspiracy that dates back to antiquity, yet is all due to NASA and the United Nations, organisations formed in 1958 and 1945 respectively. What these mental defectives have yet to do is explain why the shape of the Earth is so significant that such a concerted effort to hide its shape would be necessary.
So this is the Coolhardlogic I've heard so much about. And what does he do to open up his video? He opens up with a cartoon picture of the globe. Wow, way to go, buddy. Good one. Which one is that? Oh, I recognize that. Ball crap. That's NASA's Blue Marble 2.0. That's one of the pieces I like to use to open up my friends' minds as to how fake their world is. So here's NASA's Blue Marble 2.0. And if you Google Earth from space, and you go to the image results, you'll notice that all of the pictures of the globe look like cartoons and CGI. That's because they are. Now, as you can see, if you Google Earth from space, one of the first images that pops up is NASA's Blue Marble 2.0, which is featured in Coolhardlogic's opening scene. Now what you want to do is click on that image, bring it up, and then you want to zoom in on the bottom left-hand patch of clouds, right here. Now if you are to zoom in on these clouds, you'll notice something kinda strange. It looks as if these clouds copy and pasted themselves. Now, I don't know if in nature clouds have learned to copy and paste themselves, but apparently these ones have. So yeah, your world is photoshopped. Not only is it photoshopped, it's admittedly photoshopped because it has to be.
It is photoshopped, but it's has to be. It is photoshopped, but it's has to be. It is photoshopped, but it's has to be.
What these mental defectives have yet to do is explain why the shape of the Earth is so significant that such a concerted effort to hide its shape would be necessary.
Why would they lie to us? Simply put, they lie to us to make us believe in what is not, so we never actually know what is. There might be more land out there that they're hiding from us. Why would they want to hide more land? Well, imagine if resources such as gold, silver, oil, imagine if these resources aren't scarce. Imagine if they're plentiful. Imagine that there's other lands out there, untouched, unclaimed, that if you could get to it, you could stake out a claim, take as much as you want. Now that's happened before, and it could possibly happen again. Maybe that's something worth lying about. Other land, other worlds, more resources. What if there's people on these lands? What if there's people on these lands who don't know that we exist? It kind of makes you think about the long-lost city of Atlantis. Maybe it's just, I don't know, 100,000 miles to your right. Now let's go the opposite way. There could be a dome or a firmament over your head. That's something worth lying about. Why would they lie about that? Oh, I don't know, because it completely disproves the Big Bang and 100% proves that we are divinely created intelligently by a higher power of some kind. Now, if we live in an enclosed system, that means man can't leave and go to any other worlds. That means we are special. It is just us. We aren't a speck of nothingness in an infinite space vacuum. We are very special if this is the case, if this is the only world covered by a dome. Now, why would they lie? Oh, I don't know. How about $18 billion annually? If NASA gets to steal $18 billion from their taxpayers, well, even if you don't believe anything else I've told you, the bottom line could be they stole your money for a fake trip to the moon. They stole your money for a fake rover on Mars. They stole your money to show you CGI and cartoon pictures of the globe. $18.4 billion annually? That might be another reason to lie. So you said flat earthers are yet to explain why hiding the shape of the earth would matter and why it's important? Well, now you can't say that anymore because I just did. And I've actually already done this before several times in several of my other videos. But of course, you were too busy beating off while watching Cartoon Network to actually do any real research on this subject before you started opening up your fat yap. Next argument.
This and this are examples of an azimuthal equidistant projection, one of many ways of projecting a three-dimensional spheroidal surface onto a two-dimensional one. If you've ever tried flattening out an orange peel into a nice map of its former self, you'll have noticed the problem. Presenting a rounded 3D surface in 2D means that something has to give.
There would be no reason for me to do that in the first place, because it is completely nonsensical and it's a total waste of time.
In the case of an azimuthal equidistant projection, what stays intact? Lines of longitude radiate from the center of this polar projection, so directions from the center point will be represented correctly. In fact, the center point is the only point on this projection where one can determine the direction and distance to any other point correctly. For other points, only distances along lines of longitude will be consistent with reality. Distances and directions between any other 2 points will be incorrect. Consequently, shapes and areas are also incorrect, and become increasingly distorted the further from the center of the map they are. We'll come back to that. The azimuthal equidistant projection does have some practical applications, but for general navigation, the problems highlighted mean it's an absolute clusterfuck.
The globe is fictional. It doesn't exist. So if we were to draw some lines of latitude and longitude around this fictional premise, therefore the lines would also be fictional. Yeah, you can start with ball crap. You can draw lines around the ball crap, and guess what? Your lines are also ball crap. So if I was to cut this globe open and try to spread it out into a map of its former spheroidal self, yeah, I would run into a problem. The map wouldn't be right, because this wasn't right to begin with. This is fake. So if I tried to make it into a map, the map, of course, is going to be incorrect, not completely accurate. Now, if I was to choose between navigation using only a globe or only the AE map, I would choose the AE map every single time if I had to choose between the two. But the AE map is definitely not 100% correct. Now, this might be a shocker to some flat earthers, but believe it or not, none of the maps that we get to see are correct. None of the maps that we've been looking at our whole lives are 100% authentic.
Due to their avoidance of doing anything more difficult than navel gazing, flattards preemptively claim that anything that looks a bit tricky can't be done. For instance, they can't even find out how big their disk world is because the UN would stop them.
Of course!
It is claimed that they patrol the southern seas and stop anyone going too far and finding the edge of the world. What these oxygen-deprived mouth breathers have failed to consider are the logistical requirements of such an operation. So let's do the thinking for them. Let's get a ballpark figure on how many patrol boats they would need. The straight line distance from the North Pole to the tip of South America is about 16,200 kilometers. Since flattards claim that distances on land are the same on their magic disc world as they are in reality, it's going to be 16,200 kilometers for them too. Let's have our patrols passing roughly halfway between Tierra del Fuego and the Krakow Peninsula, say 16,500 kilometers from the North Pole. This gives a circumference of roughly 103,700 kilometers of ocean to patrol continuously. Place a boat, say, every 10 kilometers, so no flattard can sneak past under the horizon, and the UN needs around 10,000 patrol boats just to stop flattard explorers discovering the truth.
10,000 patrol boats. Yeah, that is a lot of boats, man. Hey, who came up with that number? Oh, you did. You came up with that number. How very cool, hard, and logical of you to assume that only boats can patrol the ocean. Yes, only boats can patrol the ocean, according to Mr. Coolhardlogic, because there is no such thing as a jet plane. The military does not own any jet planes whatsoever, according to Mr. Coolhardlogic, that could participate in such patrolling of such oceans. They don't have any unmanned drones either. There's no such thing as an unmanned drone with a camera that could also participate in patrolling the oceans. It's only boats, and it has to be exactly 10,000 of them. And you have to line them up tip to tip. And then, if you can, you want to have your crew members get out on the ship and hold hands. That way no flat earthers can sneak through. That's the stupidest argument I've ever heard. He got to make up all the parameters himself, and he assumes only boats are capable of patrolling the ocean. Only boats. And you have to stack them up side by side. None of these boats have any radar systems. And there's no such thing as a central intelligence agency that could keep track of any individuals who might be planning a trip. Hey, dipshit. Have you ever thought that these phones that we're all walking around with are actually spying devices that the government is using to spy on us, keep tabs on us? If I was to plan a trip to somewhere where I'm not supposed to go, I would need to acquire a boat. I would need to acquire a crew. I would need to acquire hundreds of pounds of supplies. This would be a huge effort I would need to organize to get a trip somewhere where I'm not supposed to be able to go in order would require tons of man hours, tons of work. So now let's assume that they might use this technology that I'm using to record this video, my phone. They might use my phone to spy on me and my friends and figure out what route we're going to take, when we're coming, what size boat we have, how many people we have on board, how many days worth of supplies we have. They're going to know everything. Of course they're going to use our telecommunication devices to spy on us and to sabotage us. The CIA is using all this information that we talk about every day to keep tabs on us. If you start running your mouth on your phone about something you're not supposed to be talking about, you better believe they're recording it. Just try saying, "Hey Siri," into your phone. Siri's going to respond to you. That's because Siri is listening to you. Not Siri so much, your phone is recording everything you're saying. Everything you are saying is being recorded by your telecommunications devices. And it's being ran through different levels of the NSA, Homeland Security, to determine whether this individual is somebody we need to keep track of or not. So if I was to organize a plan to try to go somewhere where I'm not supposed to go, you better believe they're going to know when I'm coming, who I'm coming with, what time I'm arriving, how I'm getting there, the whole shebang. It's not like they're just patrolling around waiting for us flat earthers to try to sneak by. I'm pretty sure the military is a little more organized than that. 10,000 boats, bro? Are you serious? Are you serious?
I, for one, look forward to them providing proof of the largest boat fleet in the world, comprised of craft capable of handling the worst of the Southern Ocean. I also look forward to them finding out where they were built, who by, how much for, identifying shipyards capable of churning out 10,000 such vessels, and finding out where all the boat builders and crew actually are, given that nobody has noticed any of this stuff going on.
Alright, y'all, let's check out my to-do list. Obtain proof of the world's largest boat fleet. Find out where they were built, who by, how much for. Dude, you made up the boat fleet. That's the number that you came up with. 10,000 boats was the number you came up with off the top of your head. And now I have to prove where the boats that you came up with off the top of your head are built and who by and how much for? Hey, how far away from curvature are we right now? I mean, that's where the argument is won and lost. The argument is won and lost over curvature of our world supposedly existing. Now, we're supposed to be debating over the shape of the Earth, and this guy wants to talk about a shipyard and where the boats were built that he made up off the top of his head. Dude, I already proved that that argument was completely ridiculous. It was bunk. All right? So let's get to the part where you prove a globe. Do you have any real proof of a globe, or do you just have cartoons and generalizations? You going to talk about the AE map all day, or are you going to get to the proof? That's the only thing on your to-do list. Show us actual, verifiable proof of a globe. But I bet we won't ever get to that, because that's what you Globetards do. You try to keep the argument as far away from curvature as possible, because that's where the argument is won and lost. I will defeat any man or woman who wants to argue over curvature and the Earth spinning. But if they want to talk about the map and flight routes and stuff that has nothing to do with curvature, man, you're wasting my time. The argument is won and lost over curvature. Show us verifiable, measurable proof that your oceans are bending and curving, Mr. Coolhardlogic. Otherwise, all you have is a cartoon.
Noting that FLATTENED claim that distances on land are the same on their fantasy world,
Noting that FLATTENED claim that distances on land are the same on their fantasy world.
You make claims about what flat earthers make claims about, yet you don't provide any examples of flat earthers making such claims.
Consider, for instance, Australia. 30 degrees south of the equator on the eastern coast is the small town of Red Rock. Let's take this point here, 30 degrees south, and 153 degrees 13 minutes east. At the same latitude on the west coast, just 6 kilometers south of the town of Lehman, let's take this point at 30 degrees south, 115 degrees east. The difference in longitude is 38 degrees and 13 minutes. If you were to set off from our point near Red Rock and drive west until you got to our point near Lehman, you would cover a distance over land between these 2 points of 3,687 kilometers. So what happens if we travel along the same 30 degrees south latitude line for 38 degrees and 13 minutes on the polar grid of the flat Earth? The 30 degrees south line is 13,322 kilometers from the geographic North Pole, and must be on the flat Earth too, for reasons we saw earlier.
I find it interesting you rely on Google Earth to calculate the measurements between your 2 points in Australia. You rely on them completely, and you have no way of verifying that. And then you want to turn around and then perform a distance calculation on the AE map, which you already told us earlier, the distances between the longitudinal lines aren't going to be correct. I don't know if you remember earlier, you already told us that the AE map isn't good for calculating distances between the longitudinal lines, that only the distances along the longitudinal lines are going to be correct. So if you're about to calculate a distance between the longitudinal lines and come up with an answer you know is incorrect, and then you're about to say that this is how flat earthers calculate distance, you better believe I'm going to call you out on that. But go ahead, please continue.
The length of an arc on a circle, subtended by an angle alpha, is alpha pi r over 180. When we crunch the numbers, we find that 2 points on the flat Earth surface, 30 degrees south of the equator, and separated by 38 degrees and 13 minutes, are 8,886 kilometers apart. This is 2.41 times greater than the real distance between our points near Red Rock and Lehman. But FLATTENED say that distances on land are the same on their giant space pizza as in real life.
See, you just did exactly what I told everyone you were going to do. You started with a false claim. Flat Earthers believe distances on the AE map are the same as on land. That's your false claim, because not all Flat Earthers believe that. I don't. And you don't give any examples of Flat Earthers claiming such. So far I just smashed your generalization, and I exposed your false claim. So you start with a false claim. And then, I don't know if you recall your own drivel that you spewed earlier when you told us that the distances along the longitudinal lines would be correct, whereas the distances between the longitudinal lines would not be correct. So you started by telling us that the distances between the longitudinal lines would not be correct, and then you proceeded to do your own calculation measuring the distance between 2 points between the longitudinal lines. So you did a calculation you knew was going to be wrong, and then you proceeded to say, this is how Flat Earthers calculate distance. That's how his whole deception started. He did it in a very slick way. I will commend you on that. You should thank your butt buddies down there at the BBC for writing you such a badass script. Yeah, that's right, I said your butt buddies, because I know one single Englishman didn't do this on his own. This is the work of maybe 5-10 guys who sat around coming up with the perfect attacks on the flat Earth where they don't have to come up with any actual evidence of a globe. They can just pick at the map and use a bunch of computer graphics. I'm sure they had one guy doing computer graphics, another guy wrote the script. Meanwhile, slick Mr. Coolhardlogic just has to deliver the script. He probably doesn't even do any of the computer graphics or any of the writing himself. That's why he doesn't show his face. That's why he doesn't give his name. Don't you find it weird that somebody defending the globe is anonymous and won't give their name? Why would you be ashamed or scared of anyone finding out who you are? You're defending the globe. Wow, Globetards, this is your hero? Mr. Coolhardlogic is your hero for defending the globe, yet he's too chicken shit to show his face or give his name.
Qantas fly direct from Sydney to Johannesburg in South Africa 6 days a week. It's a direct distance of 11,060 kilometres, with the flight taking around 13 hours and 20 minutes, at a speed of 830 kilometers an hour.
Well, that's funny, because when I looked up that flight, it says it takes 14 hours and 10 minutes, and it uses a Boeing 747. Now, the cruising speed of a Boeing 747 is 920 kilometers per hour. So you were either lying about your flight times and flight speeds, or you were mistaken, because it actually takes longer than what you have listed, and the plane goes faster than what you have listed. So if we can't even trust you to give us accurate flight times and flight speeds, how can we trust any of your calculations or anything you say? Now, it's important for people to realize planes can go much faster than their typical cruise speeds. For instance, there was a Boeing 777 that caught the jet stream and made it from New York to London in 5 hours. This plane got up to 745 miles per hour, or 1,199 kilometers per hour. In fact, the pilot said, "It's just like surfing. It's extraordinary how fast you can go."
Things on the flat Earth aren't quite so simple. Sydney Airport is 151.1772 degrees east. Johannesburg's OR Tambo Airport is 28.2461 degrees east. The difference in longitude is therefore 122.9311 degrees. Sydney Airport is 13,759 kilometres from the North Pole. OR Tambo Airport is 12,894 kilometres from the North Pole. Now that we have two sides of the triangle and the angle between them, we can use the law of cosines to calculate the straight line distance from Sydney to Johannesburg on the flat Earth.
Are you really going to try the same trick twice? It didn't work the first time, so it damn sure isn't going to work the second time. First of all, you started with the incorrect flight speed and the incorrect flight time. Second of all, at the beginning of the video, you already told us one should not use the AE map to determine distances between the lines of longitude. You said distances along the lines of longitude are the only ones considered to be correct. And I agreed with you, so we both agree on that. I don't use the AE map to determine distances horizontally between the lines of longitude, but here you are again. You're going to measure distances between the lines of longitude and come up with an incorrect answer, and then you're going to say that that's what flat earthers think the distance is. It's another flawed premise and another false claim. It would be the exact same as me saying, hey, Globetards think that the Earth is 25,000 miles in circumference. And when you look at their map, you can see Antarctica runs all the way across the bottom of their map. So that means all Globetards think that Antarctica is 25,000 miles across. Yeah, that's a false claim, and that's exactly what Coolhardlogic just did twice.
So, unless FLATTENED can demonstrate that a 747-400 can fly at nearly double its rated maximum speed, and do so without critical components like wings and tailplanes simply being ripped off, and tell us where all the extra fuel is stored, and explain the slight discrepancy in scenery on the flight, we can safely say that the idea that the Earth is flat is bollocks.
Now this brings us to a very important question. Is Qantas Flight 63 real? Well, personally, I don't know. Now, when I looked up the cheapest option to get from Sydney to Johannesburg, the three cheapest flights that first popped up take you to Singapore, Abu Dhabi, and Qatar. Now, when I drew up these flight paths on the globe on Google Earth, the first flight path was to Singapore. That's the cheapest flight available. It takes you up into the northern hemisphere before it takes you to Johannesburg. The next two cheapest flights were to Abu Dhabi and Qatar, which are basically in the same place. They take you up even farther into the northern hemisphere. Now, when you look at these same flight paths on an AE map, suddenly they make way more sense. Look at Qatar and Abu Dhabi. It's basically right there on the way. And then Singapore's not that far out of the way. So these flight paths with only one stop actually make more sense on the AE map than they do on the globe. So that brings us back to the question, what about direct flight Qantas Flight 63? Is it real? And where is it going? What flight path is it actually taking? Now, I've looked up videos of people supposedly taking this flight because I've never taken this flight personally and I don't know anyone who's taken it. So when I watch videos of people taking the flight, on their display on the video, it shows that they're flying next to Antarctica. And then when the people are looking out the window, they're seeing ice and they're saying that that's Antarctica. And then on the flight path shown by Coolhardlogic, they're nowhere near Antarctica. And even when you look up the flight path on Google Earth, the shortest distance isn't anywhere near Antarctica. So my question is, when I watch these videos of people supposedly taking this flight, why are we looking at ice? Are they flying that close to Antarctica? And if so, why? So here's the graphic of Google Earth that Coolhardlogic showed when he was talking about the direct flight path from Sydney to Johannesburg. And then when you watch the videos of people supposedly taking this flight, they say that they're flying over Antarctica and they're looking at ice out the window. But the flight path is nowhere near Antarctica on the graphic. So something fishy is going on with this flight, folks, and I just can't put my finger on it. So my three questions are, is Flight 63 real? And if Flight 63 is real, then why does it fly over or near Antarctica? And then finally, could Australia be in a different spot than where we think it is? And maybe even a fourth question. Would a plane possibly fly down further to Antarctica to possibly catch a strong tailwind of Antarctic wind so the plane could then fly faster than usual? I don't know. I don't know the answer to any of these questions, as I have not taken this flight personally, and I don't know anyone who I trust who's taken this flight either. And guess what? Coolhardlogic hasn't taken this flight either. Otherwise, he would have included video of himself taking it. But then again, he would have had to have shown his face, and we all know he's too chicken shit to do that.
Since FLATTENED seem to think that with a round Earth you have to constantly point down to stop aircraft flying off into space, and conclude that Earth must be flat because they can't feel the plane flying down, they should, by the same pathetic reasoning, expect a plane flying west to be constantly banking to the right to maintain a westerly course. And remember, the further north the aircraft is, the more pronounced that bank is going to have to be, because the tighter the arc is going to be.
And yet another false claim. That seems to be your MO. No, planes wouldn't have to constantly bank right and left because they fly straight from airport to airport. Now I know earlier in the video you said planes aren't allowed to fly straight because of reasons. Well, actually, I debunked your flawed logic behind those reasons. So, planes are allowed to fly straight from airport to airport because that's what they do. Now, us flat earthers do say, and I will give you credit for this is the only thing you've gotten right. Flat earthers do say that the plane should have to dip the tip of the nose downward to adjust for curvature if we're flying over a globe. Now, you sidestepped this argument, and you never actually addressed this argument or answered it at all, and you said by the same pathetic logic that we should also have to bank right and left constantly. Well, it's not the same logic. Because if the Earth is constantly curving downward, the plane should have to constantly be tipping the nose downward to adjust for such curvature. And they don't. So it's not the same logic at all to assume that they should bank constantly right or left when they're actually flying in straight lines from airport to airport. So I think this is it for you, Mr. Coolhardlogic. I don't think you've provided not one single shred of real proof of a globe.
But what we did all learn today was that maps can be fudged, distances can be fudged, flight times can be fudged, flight speeds can be fudged. But you know what can't be fudged? The flat Earth truth. See this face? It's mine. My name isn't Flat Earth Asshole, it's Jake Gibson. Here's my face. My name is Jake Gibson. Where's yours? Where's your face? Where's your name? I find it highly strange a man needs to defend the globe anonymously because it's so dangerous to defend the globe, right? You wouldn't want to give your name or your face away when you're doing such a dangerous job defending the globe. Your miserable attempt at cold-cocking us flat earthers has backfired in your face. I have exposed your false claims. I took apart your flawed logic. I showed everybody you're not so cool. I know you didn't work alone on this. I know there's a team of dudes watching this video right now. wondering what they're gonna say next. Hey fellas, hello. You forgot to include one thing. Proof of a globe. You're gonna have to do more than poke at the AE map and have fun with your anonymous cartoon maker, Mr. Coolhardlogic. You're gonna have to do more than that. You're gonna have to provide irrefutable, testable, verifiable proof of the globe. Because guess what? We're yet to see that from you. We're yet to see anything but a cartoon from you, Mr. Coolhardlogic. So, if this argument were to be even at this point, it's time I end it and I put you to sleep for good. So far, Coolhardlogic has presented zero evidence of a spinning ball in an infinite space vacuum. So now the Globetards will say, the burden is on you, flat earther, to prove that the earth is flat, not on us Globetards to prove it's round. I'll take your burden. This one's gonna hurt really bad. This is gonna be the knockout punch for you, Coolhardlogic. And it's gonna be a devastating blow to the globe. This is one of the greatest flat earth proofs I have ever seen. Ladies and gentlemen, you are about to see one of the biggest, baddest, ball-busting flat earth proofs you will ever lay eyes on. Pucker up, punk, because you won't get back up from this one. Yeah! Rogers Center is only 282 feet tall. I want to thank Jenna Fredo for performing this experiment. You debunked the globe, Jenna. Congratulations. Until next time.